Welcome back. You're watching After Impact, a program which looks at the life-changing consequences of surviving a serious road crash. From his motorcycle accident, John suffered such severe injuries to his face that he required a full facial reconstruction.
You can see a scar here and here. They cut me over the top of my head and basically peeled my face off and start again. So I had 97 staples from ear to ear. It was horrible.
On about the fourth or fifth day, I went in to see Eli, and his hands had curled up in spasticity. And that was probably the day that I realised that my son was going to have a very difficult pathway ahead of him.
At the rehab centre, I was basically a 6'6" newborn child. I had to teach myself how to walk in. I had to teach myself how to talk in. Drinking, I had both my arms fused at one point because my muscles just didn't work. So I had to teach myself how to actually eat again. I had spoons that bent around the corner.
At the moment, I can't get myself in and out of bed. I need a second person to help put a sling underneath me. Then we use a ceiling hoist to lift me up out of the chair, over to the bed, and then back down on the bed. That's how I get in and out of bed every morning.
When I was okay to leave hospital, they said that I'd be going to Hampstead Rehab. I went into the brain injury ward. I didn't understand. I thought my physical injuries far outweighed my head injury. I didn't really realise that I had a head injury. I didn't realise the impact of what I was dealing with. I couldn't really speak. I couldn't construct a sentence. I was so confused and lost at the time.
There's a huge lack of understanding about brain injury. People think that if you look fine, you are fine, but that's just not the case. So it's everything from people having speech difficulties and someone thinking they're intoxicated to being abused when they get out of the car at a disability parking space. But behind the scenes, they've got really big challenges in their lives due to their brain injury. Behind the smile, Holly has struggled, with cognitive challenges, with fatigue, with physical challenges. She's had to do so much work to rebuild her life, work that no one would know just from looking at her and seeing her smiling face.
Fatigue that comes with a brain injury is huge, and it's so hard because it is invisible to explain and to, not be perceived as lazy or ignoring someone.
Yeah, the brain injury part of it's been really, really tricky, I suppose. To accept, probably the hardest part. Because I'm a young, fit man who should be able to work still and do everything that he did before, but...
It's not a everyday occurrence for a lot of people to have to see their other half go through so many different therapies, having to support him through the downtimes, the crashes, I guess what you'd say is like when things become overwhelming for him or when there's too much stuff happening.
It's become very apparent to me that acquired brain injury affects everything about you. Every part of your body is impacted. Your emotional intelligence loses about 20 years, what it did for me.
Following his accident, Blake was faced with a dilemma. What to do about a left arm that no longer worked, was wasting away, causing him constant pain and just got in the way. 2 years after his accident, he made the tough call to have his arm amputated.
The decision wasn't easy, but I like to think I'm pretty logical. I said, if I can't fix it, I've got to do something to at least make it easier to live with. Your options are limited. I tried different slings, different ways to carry the arm, but at the end of the day, it was still just in the way. It wasted away. It was skin and bone before it got cut off towards the end.
We had to relearn how to write. He had to relearn how to do, just your day-to-day tasks, because you take it for granted that you need to wash yourself. You just wash yourself. He had to make a complete switch in his brain, so there was a lot of pressure.
So we've seen the physical injuries that can be caused by serious road trauma. But what about some of the hidden issues survivors face, like their mental health?
The last few days in rehab, I started realising something wasn't right. That's when my brain started coming to and, realising the impact that this crash has had on me. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't go to the shower. I couldn't stand. I couldn't talk. I couldn't do anything. And I remember my grandma coming into my room and I just started bawling. I just started crying hysterically, realising that this was my life.
Like, I had to go to therapy not just for my accident, but because of what my parents had to go through as well. And it's like it was an accident, and it could have happened to anyone. But like, I didn't want to feel that like I've put them in so much pain as well. So when I found out that my dad was just 2 cars behind the truck and saw the impact, saw it happen, he was actually first on scene as well. So when he got to the car and I wasn't waking up, it would have been like a nightmare for him.
It wasn't more towards the end of my time in ICU, and as I moved into the surgical wards and I had a few more scans that I was a bit more conscious for, that they started to explain the severity of the long-term injuries, mostly the nerve damage, and the implications that had being, my arm was well and truly buggered, that I started to get the real emotions and a bit of sadness, a bit of anger.
I think the other big thing was his medication as well. The medication obviously blew him up, but Blake being Blake, research is everything. It slows down mental function over time. So he made the choice that he'd rather be smart and in pain than just kind of getting through life and just being out of pain, and that's just such a typical Blake thing to do.
Amanda Padden is a senior social worker with the trauma service based at Royal Darwin Hospital. Experience has taught her that the term serious injury is rarely understood.
I think this is a massive area that does need more general public awareness, because it's not just about going to hospital, going to rehab, going home, you're all good. We know that the implications roll on for years, and it's mental, it's social, it's emotional, it's functional, it's life goals and aspirations that all get impacted.
I struggled mentally more so than physically. Our eldest daughter would spend a week on, week off with us. She'd be with mum for a week and dad for a week. And when she came home to us for the first time, I still had a bandage across my nose and obviously looked quite different, and she wouldn't look at me. And while I understood, it hurt.
She screamed and ran away from him. I don't think I'll ever forget her reaction. It actually put me in tears, seeing her in tears, and it makes me wonder what sort of traumatic memory she probably still has of it.
I know people who are young parents of young children, and those relationships have changed. Children can become scared of the changes in their mother or their father, and relationships break down and marriages break down. And even though they've survived the medical journey and the injuries, their lives are changed forever, and it doesn't have to be like that.
I was 21 years of age, the world was at my feet. I'd just become a qualified diesel mechanic, run the rugby with my local club. Remember sitting on the back of a ute before the Sevens game we were going to be playing after winning the premiership with my other mates, just looking over the field going, how good is life? And then fast forward 3 months later, I'm in Hampstead, pressing a buzzer, waiting for a nurse to come into the room, lift me out of bed, put me over into my electric wheelchair so I could drive down to breakfast. That was hard.
The mental health impact is just one of the hidden costs of life as a road crash survivor dealing with serious injuries. Then we have the financial impact. In Australia, we're blessed with an excellent universal healthcare system. Yet serious road crashes can leave survivors and their families struggling to pay for a host of things, including the ongoing care that's needed.
The financial burden was one of the most stressful parts. I could deal with the emotional side of things. I could deal with some of the physical changes. Some of those things I just couldn't help, but the financial stuff, I had a car loan, I had bills, I had things I had to pay for.
As parents, we were like, have we done the right thing encouraging her to buy a house, to make this massive commitment? She has a mortgage repayment and she has no income. How is she going to long term be able to make this work? Is she going to be able to afford to go travelling? Can she buy that new car? Is she going to have a family?
I had to go home to live with my parents because I needed care, support, and financially I couldn't put a roof over my head. So I had physiotherapists, speech therapists, occupational therapists. Arriving at my parents' house 4 days a week for 11 months. I had to have lessons for about a year to get my driver's license back.
I think Eli's quite traditional in the sense that he sees it as his role to provide for our family. And the unfortunate thing for him is that he can't provide for our family because he can't work full time. He's tried to work part-time, but he fatigues extremely quickly. And that's not just physical fatigue, that's cognitive fatigue. So that's heartbreaking for him that he is in a position where he feels financially like a burden on our family and on society in general.
My brain injury, this car crash, has affected my ability to earn money, earn a living for myself. I can't work 8-hour days anymore. It's terrifying because I don't know what my future holds with that, the financial hardship that comes from this car crash.
The stress, you can't plan for something like this. You can't budget to end up nearly dead and without out of a job for, I think about 15 months all up, I didn't work. You can't plan to change careers as a 21-year-old electrician.
Coming up, we'll look at the social and functional costs of being a road crash survivor and find out what's being done to influence the next generation of drivers.